Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes your sources, articles, research notes, whatever you've got, and really digs in to pull out the key insights. Our goal, to get you informed, fast. Today, we're diving into something pretty powerful and honestly, quite heartbreaking. It's a paradox unfolding right now in Atlanta, Georgia.
Right, Atlanta.
Yeah.
A city that really represents the New South, doesn't it?
Exactly. Booming growth. You see the gleaming skyscrapers, that thriving economy. It has this real reputation for success.
And, when it comes to homelessness, Atlanta's actually celebrated some pretty significant wins lately.
Yeah, they have. We're talking veteran homelessness is down, youth homelessness has declined.
And chronic homelessness, often the most visible and toughest kind, that's dropped by an impressive 9%.
These are real achievements. It's proof that, when you focus efforts, you can make a difference, a profound difference.
And this is the kicker, isn't it?
It is. What makes this deep dive so critical, so necessary, is this really troubling counter trend.
Family homelessness.
Family homelessness in Atlanta surged. And not by a little bit, by a staggering 14% in just the last year.
14%. That's huge.
It's not just a number, it's the core story we need to explore today. We're kind of uncovering a hidden epidemic here.
One that's unfolding in really unexpected places.
Heartbreaking places, back seats of cars, rundown motel rooms. It's happening through the eyes of children experiencing this instability firsthand.
And this matters, right?
Yeah.
Even if you listening don't live in Atlanta.
Absolutely. Because the underlying forces, the economic pressures, the social dynamics, these are playing out everywhere, shaping communities all across the country. So why is this surge in family homelessness so often unseen? Especially in a city like Atlanta that's always in the spotlight.
Well, Atlanta's that jewel of the New South.
Yeah.
The hub constantly moving forward. Commerce, culture, opportunity.
But for a growing number of families, the only thing really expanding is the gap. The gap between what they earn and what rent costs.
Yeah. And while overall homelessness numbers have kind of stabilized only up about 1%, which is relatively stable, the crisis itself hasn't gone away.
No, it's just changed its face. It's changed who is most affected.
It's not primarily the single person on the street corner anymore, though that's still an issue, of course.
Right. Now, we're talking about entire families. The sources describe it as 400 people strong.
Yeah.
Families caught in a city that's just becoming too expensive.
These aren't people who aren't working. That's a key point.
Definitely not. These are often working families, parents with full-time jobs, sometimes, juggling two jobs.
And still
Yeah.
unable to afford basic, safe housing, like a simple two-bedroom apartment.
You hear these agonizing stories. Mothers trying to decide between childcare, which they need to work, and saving enough for a security deposit.
It's an impossible choice.
It really is. And here's something that really jumps out. Over 90% of these families, they aren't literally sleeping on the streets.
Right. That's not where you'll typically find them.
Instead, they're in emergency shelters, if they can get in. Or transitional housing programs.
Or doubled up with relatives, maybe crammed into an already small apartment.
Or living out of their cars, parking in Walmart lots overnight. Or cycling through those rundown motels, paying week by week, just hanging on.
Which creates this statistical invisibility, as the sources call it.
Exactly. They're struggling, but just beyond our normal line of sight. Always moving, always just out of view in this busy, constantly changing city.
And it's precisely that unseen nature, that invisibility, that makes the problem so much harder to tackle.
How so?
Well, first, it makes it harder for the public to even recognize the scale of it. You might notice, say, a tent city under an overpass on your commute. That's visible.
Okay.
That becomes the image of homelessness for a lot of people. But these families, the parents, the kids in the car, moving between motels, they're largely unseen.
They don't fit the stereotype.
They don't fit the stereotype at all. So it's much easier for the broader community to overlook their situation. It creates this disconnect.
Right. If you can't clearly see the problem.
How can you grasp how big it is? Or feel the urgency to actually do something about it? So it paints this picture, doesn't it? In a city defined by progress, by success, who's getting left behind? Who falls through the cracks when that forward momentum just outpaces people's ability to keep up?
That's a really powerful point. So, okay, let's get into the how. How does a family actually become homeless in a city like Atlanta, a place that seems so successful?
Well, our sources are clear. It's rarely one single dramatic thing, like one big event pushing them over the edge.
Right, it's more gradual.
Yeah, it's described more as a slow, relentless collapse,
Yeah.
a gradual wearing away of their stability.
And the biggest driver.
The biggest culprit, plain and simple,
Yeah.
a catastrophic failure in the housing market.
Okay, let's talk numbers.
The numbers are stark. In just 5 years, Metro Atlanta lost 232,000 affordable rental units.
Wow. 232,000? And affordable meaning.
Meaning apartments renting for $1,500 or less per month. In that exact same period, the city gained over 258,000 unaffordable units. Units renting for more than $1,500.
So the affordable stock vanished, replaced by more expensive housing.
Precisely. As one source put it, the math is just brutal. Atlanta has increasingly focused on luxury development, attracting higher-income folks.
And squeezing out working families.
Exactly. Leaving them with fewer and fewer places they can realistically afford to live.
And it's not just about the number of units, is it? It's also about income.
Right. Wages simply haven't kept pace. They've stagnated for many, while housing costs have just skyrocketed. It's created this totally unsustainable imbalance.
And we see that reflected in this cost burden statistic.
Yes. Over 40% of Atlanta renters are now considered cost-burdened.
Which means they're spending more than 30% of their income just on rent.
Think about that. Over a third of your paycheck, gone, just for the roof over your head. What's left?
Almost nothing. For groceries, healthcare, forget about an unexpected car repair.
Exactly. Our sources describe it as living on a knife's edge.
Where just one little thing goes wrong.
One missed paycheck, one unexpected bill, boom. An eviction notice can follow almost immediately, sending a family spiraling into homelessness.
And the safety nets, are they catching people?
Well, this situation really highlights how frayed those critical safety nets have become. Shelters, like the Gateway Center mentioned in the sources, they're often the last hope.
But they're full.
They are completely overwhelmed. The city does coordinate things like warming centers, emergency shelters, but the whole system is just exhausted. It's buckling under the demand.
And paradoxically, that demand is partly fueled by the city's success.
It is. It's an unintended consequence of that growth and prosperity. This isn't just about individual poverty, though that's part of it. It's fundamentally a crisis of policy.
A systemic failure.
A systemic failure to balance growth with the basic needs of all the city's residents. Which raises a really important question.
What happens then?
What happens to a community when the very infrastructure meant to catch people, the shelters, the support systems, is just overwhelmed by the city's own success? Who gets left with nowhere to land?
And the human cost. It must be immense.
Oh, absolutely. Losing your home isn't just about losing shelter. It's losing stability, dignity, hope.
Our sources really emphasize this isn't just a social issue. It's a public health crisis.
Unequivocally.
Mm-hmm.
For families already living on that knife's edge, the trauma of homelessness often makes existing problems worse. Mental health challenges, substance use issues.
It traps parents in a cycle.
A cycle that directly impacts their children. The statistics are heartbreaking. In Metro Atlanta, nearly half of adults experiencing homelessness also have a serious mental illness.
And 40% are battling substance use disorder.
And it's so crucial to understand these aren't moral feelings. These are medical conditions.
Right. Made exponentially worse by the stress, the instability, the trauma of being homeless.
And trying to get care in that situation.
Almost impossible. Georgia consistently ranks near the bottom in the U.S. for mental health care access generally.
Now imagine trying to navigate that broken system without a stable address, without reliable transportation, without being able to hold down a steady job.
It feeds itself, doesn't it? Without stable housing, keeping a job is incredibly hard.
Without a job, healthcare is often financially out of reach.
And without care, the underlying issues, mental health, substance use that might have contributed to homelessness, they go untreated.
It's a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. It just traps people.
And the impact on the kids?
Oh, it's devastating.
Mm-hmm.
Constant instability, moving around. It disrupts their education massively.
Isolates them from friends, from support networks.
And inflicts this deep trauma that can genuinely shape their entire lives.
But what's so frustrating is we know how to fix parts of this, right?
We do. That's what's so maddening. Our sources point to successful targeted programs. They've dramatically cut homelessness for specific groups. Like, for instance, homelessness among adults with diagnosed mental illness reduced by 25%.
Wow.
And for those battling substance use disorders, down by 30%. These aren't theories. These are proven successes in Atlanta.
It shows that when you focus resources, use targeted interventions.
You absolutely can break the cycle for those groups. But here's the tragedy.
For families.
For families, those resources, those proven solutions, they just aren't keeping up. They're not being applied at the scale or with the urgency needed.
Leaving children as the silent victims.
The silent suffering victims of this systemic failure. The solutions work, we know they work, but they aren't getting to the families, to the children who desperately need them right now.
And that brings us right back to this stark paradox in Atlanta, a city that has proven it can solve homelessness.
In certain areas, yes.
Yet it's simultaneously allowing this crisis to worsen dramatically for families with kids. Let's just say those successes again. Chronic homelessness down 9%.
Veteran homelessness down 6%.
Youth homelessness down 3%. These are concrete examples, proof of concept.
We show commitment, resources, policy.
Yeah.
It can work.
But then you put that right next to the 14% spike in family homelessness.
It's a brutal contrast.
It feels like an indictment, doesn't it, of a system that's fundamentally out of balance.
Yeah, it's like you said before, rescuing people from a flood over here.
While ignoring a broken dam causing devastation just down the river, parents and kids are literally being swept away.
Now, we should acknowledge, Atlanta has ambitious plans. There's the housing strike force.
Right, aiming to build or preserve 20,000 affordable units.
And they are innovating, looking at things like converting shipping containers for rapid housing, trying to get people sheltered quickly.
Which is good, but there's the other side of this story, too.
The inequality.
A deeply unequal Atlanta, as the sources put it. The numbers are stark. 80% of the city's homeless population is Black.
Even though Black residents make up less than half the city's overall population. That points to deep systemic disparities.
And nationally, we know seniors are the fastest growing unsheltered group. That's a terrifying trend for Atlanta's aging population, too.
So, yeah, the progress is real, but it's clearly not reaching everyone, and it's definitely not reaching its most vulnerable families effectively enough.
So how do we synthesize these two stories, the progress and the failure happening at the same time?
Well, the progress in reducing overall homelessness, and for veterans, for those with specific needs, that's real.
Yeah.
It shows capability, it shows commitment in some areas.
But
that progress is clearly not reaching everyone equitably. It's particularly failing to protect and house its most vulnerable families. Which leads to that fundamental question.
how can this happen?
How can a city be so successful, demonstrably successful, in tackling homelessness for some groups, yet fail so badly with families and children?
What does that say about priorities? Or maybe blind spots in the system?
Exactly. Are we just treating symptoms in some places, while the root causes affecting families continue to fester? It forces us to ask those hard questions.
That really is the central question, isn't it? And maybe at the end of the day, Atlanta's family homelessness crisis isn't hidden because it's literally invisible.
Maybe it's hidden because we've learned to look away.
Perhaps. The face of this crisis has changed. It's not just the person you might stereotype on a street corner. It could be the child sitting next to your kid in school.
Trying to focus on lessons when they don't know where they'll sleep that night.
It's a crisis born from a housing market that, let's face it, often prioritizes profits over people. But it's so important to remember, solutions do exist. We've seen proof.
More shelters are needed now, desperately in the short term. But that's not the long-term answer on its own.
No. We need a massive, sustained expansion of genuinely affordable housing.
A robust, accessible network of mental health and substance use services that people can actually navigate, even without a fixed address.
And crucially, we need commitment, real commitment from everyone, government, businesses, citizens, acting with urgency and compassion.
Because the implications here are profound.
Atlanta's future. It won't ultimately be defined by its shiny skyscrapers or its booming economy. It'll be defined by how it treats its most vulnerable residents.
And for those hundreds of families caught in this cycle right now, the question is, will that future include a home for them?
It's a powerful question. If this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, if you want to keep getting insights like this on critical topics, you should definitely check out Mind Expansion Daily. It's a fantastic resource for these kinds of deep dives.
Yeah, really good stuff over there.
For now, maybe just take a moment. Consider what this crisis might look like, maybe in different forms, in your own community. What responsibility do we all share in demanding real, equitable solutions?
Because this story, while focused on Atlanta today, it's not just Atlanta's problem. Versions of this are playing out nationwide.
So please, if this story moved you, share it, talk about it. The more people who truly see what's happening, the harder it becomes for those empowered to look away.